get you home, Tomo.
George, Alex, to be part of a story by Michael Morpugo is it must be a dream come true, mustn't it, for an actor?
Yeah. As soon as I got the part, I went and bought the book, and yeah, when you read it, you really get involved, you know, in the story. And I kind of, even though I was reading it from the perspective of an actress playing the part of Molly, I kind of completely lost myself in it, and because he's such a great writer, and I felt a great responsibility that I needed to bring his world that he'd written so wonderfully to life. Yeah.
Yeah, likewise the same. I only read the book after getting the part, and it's different approaching it from an acting point of view. And we were saying that his writing is so clear and so wonderful, and also because it's kind of made more accessible for a younger audience as well. There's a real sort of clarity to certain parts, and when he's describing characters, it's not chapters spent on it. There's real sort of pure, clean sentences that describe everything that you need to know. So for me, from an acting point of view, that was a great sort of bit of research for us, as there's, you know, to define characters so clearly in certain parts. So yeah, it was wonderful.
The peaceful family have been employed by my family 5 generations.
Afternoon, Molly.
You're a pinch of snuff, Colonel.
I'd like to pinch you, Miss Farr.
Colonel.
The heart of the story, for me in particular, I felt it was a family story, really. Is that something that you guys also picked up on?
Yeah, it's definitely a family story. When I read it, and afterwards as well, I often think of the women that were left at home and with their loved ones, and the men that they love are away in an unknown country, and they're just, every time the postman comes to the door, they're thinking, am I going to have bad news, just waiting for letters or just some sort of news from them. And when they don't come back, how that changes the family life afterwards, and how these small little towns and villages will never be the same again.
That's it, right? I think I'm in love. Pardon? I think I'm in love. Oh, which one, her?
I mean, one of the lines in the film that really stood out to me was, I think it was Maxine Peake, where she says, if women had their say, there wouldn't be war. Yeah. And it really depicts that sign of the times, isn't it, where women actually don't have a say.
No. Yeah, and it's mentioned again in the film as well, that the women are making the artillery and making the weapons and stuff, and it's the colonel that says that's the fault of the war, is the women. And yeah, the women didn't have a say back then, or they were helpless, and they were just trying to get their lives, you know, to carry on back home without the men around, and that you can't underestimate how difficult that could have been. Yeah.
Was that something that came to your attention as well, George?
Yeah, I think that there's another thing that Maxine says in it, which is, you know, it's even harder bringing, you know, a family up on your own, and so think about, you know, your wife and your children, not just the promises you've made to yourself and your pals. And that's with this, is these characters are so, there's a real sadness, because they go to these terrible places because for themselves, really. You know, Tomo strikes out because he wants to become a man and express himself as a man, and sort of, it's almost like a rite of passage that I will fight. It's a very primal masculine thing to do, and so he does it for himself, really, but also for Molly. And it's that kind of, that terrible sort of misjudgment, really. And you think, you know, in a way, Charlie's got it so right when he's saying, you know, why would I ever shoot a German and stuff? I've never even met a German. But then again, this is what was expected of these men, and the pressures that they were under from themselves to go out, and the promises that make themselves that if I do this, I'm a man. And it's that thing of, if I can go out and I can survive, and if I can win, then that proves that I'm a man. But then it's one of those things that when, you know, if there's a machine gun just going back and forth, it doesn't matter how wonderful and great a soldier you are and how brave you are. It's that thing of just, there's a kind of 2 metre gap between every bullet when they're just doing that. So if you're in that 2 metre gap, that's great. If you're not, there's nothing you can do about it. You know, however aware and calm and brave you are, if your number's up, your number's up. And it's just the nature of the warfare kind of was at odds with the brave thoughts that these men were going out with. So it's tough.
Do you think Molly might meet us later? Work, Tomo! I didn't want to hide it from you. You did hide it from me. I didn't want to hurt you.
The army need fit, able-bodied young men ready to fulfill their patriotic duty.
My little boy, what have you done?
For you as actors, you know, backstory is everything, and we come into the first act where we see them as children. So for you, approaching the script, did that help you with your research and your preparation for the parts, knowing already the story of these kids?
Was there, yeah, and Michael's book absolutely helped us with the backstory, because everything was there from when they were boys and when Molly was younger all the way up until, well, they're young adults. All the information was there for us as actors, which is really helpful. But there comes a point where you have to say, okay, Michael, I've had your book and I've got it, it's in my system, and now I need to let it go and let my imagination take over. So you're not playing someone else's Molly, you're playing your own, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, there's so much kind of, as you say, the backstory is such an important part, and, you know, giving a character depth. And so when that's part of the story, it's there for you. It gives a very clear point for you to draw on. And there's literal, you know, lines that you can reference that give it so much depth immediately, and also make it very clear that, you know, we're all working from, as Alex has said, you know, we work from the same place, and we're very clear because we've all read the same script and the same book of how the characters are feeling, and you have a deeper insight. Whether, you know, if we didn't have that, if the film started when we were all older, I'd have my perspective that I may not have told Jack and Alex. But now we're working for the same thing, but then, so it gives it a real kind of honest base that then we can then sort of imagine further. So it kind of dressing something that we're all aware of, which kind of unites us because it makes it very clear that we're all on the same page when we start. Yeah, the same song.
Name! Private Tomo Peaceful. What's it for? So a few little rich men can hang on to power a little while longer while we bleed us dry?
It's better than breaking your back all your life working someone else's land. You must get stuck here forever.
Here's home, Tomo.
You're a coward, Charlie Peaceful.
With regards to the characters and the development, we see Molly, in the beginning, she's very spirited, isn't she?
Yes.
But as the film progresses,
yes,
that does change.
Yes, you see her. Yeah, I found that when I watched it last night at the premiere. She is very feisty as a young girl, and I think that's definitely still in her. But just the situation has kind of taken over. You know, the war becomes the forefront of her mind, and this, you know, the love of the boys, in a different love for the two boys, and them going away. It's not that her spirit is lost, but it's other things need to take priority.
And for you, George, you're very much underneath the shadow of Charlie, your brother. So is the driving force really behind the character development to break free of that and prove himself a man, really? Yeah, that's a huge part of it. But then it's a nice kind of juxtaposition in the sense that he loves him so much, and it's just this kind of Charlie is his shining light, and that's what he feels comfortable with, is being sort of in Charlie's light all the time. And so it was a really sort of interesting thing to play with, that back and forth of who you are is your love of that person, but then again that love of that person also has all these kind of really frustrating things of, you know, he gets the girl that I'm in love with, and he's always been the faster and the stronger and the older, and the story, you know, begins and ends where the 2-year age gap starts, you know, but towards the end they're you know, much more on a level. But when they're younger, when you're growing older, you know, when one's 13 and one's 10, then, you know, 3 years is a big difference at that age, and it's so difficult. That mountain suddenly, you know, 23 and 20, you're on a level, but at 13 and 10, he's kind of light years above you, and it's trying to hold on to that.
You think I should just stay here and let them fight without me? Before we lost you, lad.
He can't walk, Sergeant! Are you disobeying my order? Private Peaceful!
Molly, your character comes into it, and it could really put a whole spanner in the works between the relationship between the two brothers, but it doesn't actually, does it?
No, I don't think it. Yeah, it doesn't put a spanner in the works because of the love between the brothers and between the three of us. We've grown up together in this small town, and we've, you know, we know each other inside. We don't want to fracture those relationships. There's love there between us.
Yeah, I think it definitely has a shift at some stage, but then there's it's at the base of love is so strong between the brothers that it can't be broken, and that's the whole point. Is throughout the film that it is never broken. It is always a love between them.
Charlie, I have to tell you. You still have feelings, Love her. The world's changing. When you stop ruling our guys, England will change too. There'll be no more empire.